Nimzo-Indian is a very serious problem for white players who are playing d4. Some of them are playing for this reason Queen's Indian defense, avoiding Nimzo-Indian. Some others try to play Catalan structures, but it is one very interesting weapon which was used by many players and especially by former world champion Vladimir Kramnik to meet Nimzo-Indian player with some English setup. So it's really delaying a bit d4 and to play d4 a bit later. So it's my game against Ukrainian Israeli Grandmaster Konstantin Lerner. This setup is old, famous. A lot of games were played here. It was in former times very popular system with Queen c2. Then it was for some period of time was tried very modern flank approach, g4, knight g4, rook g1 with very sharp position, which is generally a bit more sympathetic for white, as we would say, as white would open g file and would control this g file with the rook. Later, in my opinion, it's not the best reaction for g4. It was either very much tried in 90s on the start of 2000 years. Then black found some sufficient counterplay. And Vladimir Kramnik here played g3 move. Yeah? So there are a few approaches for black here in this situation. First approach was tried by Grandmaster Lerner. He played castle bishop g2 c5, which is quite logical development, castle and knight c6, and here d4. So it is some version, now we got some version of Nimzo-Indian, which was either very popular after the games of Oleg Romanishin and Garry Kasparov. Here Lerner reacted very simple, but in my opinion is not the best reaction. He took on c3 and played d6. And here it is very strong reaction, bishop f4, threatening immediately to take pawn on c5 and to play bishop d6, yeah, and to win this pawn c5. Lerner answered with knight h5, bishop e3, pawn is hanging, b6 is met by knight e5 here, so he tried knight queen e7, pawn c5, pawn takes, and knight d2. And now knight is ready to attack this pawn on c5 via b3 or via e4. So knight f6 was played, knight b3, and now there are huge problems for black here. Here he decided to sacrifice a pawn, as after knight d7 he didn't like this position. Black threats to play knight e5, but white can meet it with f4, stopping black development, and it would be very difficult to continue development of the queen's flank. So Lerner played queen c7, but this move is I can't say this simply losing the game. It's pawn sacrifice, but this pawn sacrifice is not sufficient. Knight d4 is very strong, threatening knight b5, and after e5, knight b5, queen a5, queen b3. Black has no compensation for the pawn. Very strong move, bishop b4, queen b6, and a4. Black cannot take now pawn on e2, because it would be huge problems after c5, queen a6, and knight c7. So black would have very serious problems here. Answer was here bishop e6, he decided to go back, and after a5, queen takes, pawn takes, bishop b3, pawn c6, it appeared that white won a pawn, bishop pair, and extremely difficult problems are waiting for black. Threat is very simple, bishop c5, pawn a7 is in very dangerous situation, and knight d7 cannot be played, as it would be met immediately with bishop d6, winning an exchange.